Hey everyone, this is Kai Werner, and today I want to talk about the data streaming landscape 2025. The main frameworks we see adopted everywhere are Apache Kafka and Apache Flink. So when I talk about such a landscape, they're definitely the key pillars of that. We will see products and cloud services around these open source frameworks, but also see a few other services that are not related to Kafka or Flink. In the end, I want to give you the big picture, and this is all my own opinion from my experience, from projects, from customer conversations. So there is no statistical research behind this, and there is not all vendors in here, but this is what I see in the field, and I hope it's helpful so that you get an overview, so that you can do your own evaluations and find the road product for yourself. Let's get started with the look at the landscape. So first of all, on the x-axis, I say it's about adaption and completeness. So what this means is in the end that we on the one side have some frameworks which you can use to build your own engine or product. And on the other side, more to the right, we have more complete platforms which provide a lot of capabilities out of the box so that you don't need to build them, like connectors, security, governance, data processing capabilities, and so on. And on the other side, we need to take a look at the different deployment models, because depending on your needs, you might deploy self-managed, you might deploy as a serverless offering, and there are some other options in the middle. Let's begin to take a look at the data streaming landscape from the self-managed perspective. So this means that you really deploy data streaming by yourself and operate it by yourself. This includes tools and products which have additional frameworks or solutions for that. Like these days, many people deploy on Kubernetes, and then you get a Kubernetes operator that takes over some of the provisioning or rolling upgrades or similar scenarios. Even that is still self-managed in my landscape. While the automation helps a lot, you have the complete control over that, and you need to have the operations burden, you take the risk if there is downtime or issues, and so on. Here are the different technologies what I see in the market with more or less adoption. Beginning from the left side, Pulsar had some traction a little bit in the early 2020, but I don't see that much. That's why it's here on the left side, including Stream Native around that. KSQL, actually, a Kafka native stream processing engine, it got a lot of traction actually a few years ago, but in the meantime, it's feature complete because Confluent shifted over to Apache Flink because Confluent sees this as becoming the de facto standard for stream processing. Then we have some more smaller companies in the market like Red Panda based on the Kafka protocol or Ververica focusing on Apache Flink. Then where we see a lot of adoption in the market already is obviously Apache Flink, which seems to become the de facto standard for stream processing overall and across many vendors. But we also see more and more innovation in Spark, specifically for Spark streaming, where you can leverage that especially for analytical use cases. Probably not so much for operational and transactional use cases. This is where Kafka and Flink are typically used. And then we see a few leading vendors here. So I see some IBM solutions coming up, very often based on the Red Hat technologies and then powered by OpenShift under the hood. Cloudera, obviously, more from the history, I would say. So coming still from Hadoop and Spark and adding more and more frameworks. Obviously, they also have Kafka and Flink, but also focus on many other technologies combined with that, like Apache NiFi. So it's a mix of many things there. And then Confluent, which I think most people agree is the leader in the space. In this case, it's about Confluent Platform, which is in the end the self-managed offering that you can deploy everywhere. And as I said, many of these technologies here also have operations tools like a Kubernetes operator and other automation. But still, all of that is self-managed, even though many of these solutions are cloud native, which means they provide, for example, tiered storage or self-balancing clusters. Nevertheless, you have the operations burden, and therefore, in most cases, these technologies are deployed in your own data center or sometimes in small deployments at the edge, like in a factory or in a retail store. As the next deployment model, we have bring your own cloud, BYOC. This is coming up more and more in the market with, in the end, a specific niche, but a critical niche, I would say, where you cannot go to a fully managed software as a service, but you want to deploy the cloud in your own VPC. You can always do the self-managed solutions in your VPC, but then you take the operations burden. Bring your own cloud in the end mixes the benefits of having a fully managed service with the security and compliance of a self-managed service in your VPC. So they're mixing these things together. And in the data streaming space, I see mainly three vendors in the space, which is WarpStream, which in the meantime was acquired by Confluent, but is still sold as its own logo and product and brand. We have Red Panda here, and then from this Spark perspective, with Spark streaming, we have Databricks, which provides, in the end, bring your own cloud for a long time already, even before this term existed, I would say. So the challenge with these components here is that these technologies under the hood work very different. So bring your own cloud is not always the same. And actually, personally, I didn't believe much in this until last year, because in most of these cases, because it's a mix of deploying as a cloud service by the vendor, and then the data is kept in your VPC. But with many of these BYOC solutions, the vendor needs to take a look and access your data in your VPC if there's issues and failures. So operations, they need to connect to your VPC, and that doesn't make sense because that's against these kind of compliance and security requirements why you actually choose the service. WarpStream introduced a new model here where it's really about share nothing, where they have a fully managed control plane, but the data plane is completely under control by the customer. And therefore, this is a very complex topic. Take a look at all these architectures by yourself and understand the differences. And with that then in mind, in the end, these are the options if you really want to have a data streaming platform in your own VPC, but partially managed with bring your own cloud. And you really need to understand all the trade-offs. Therefore, in most cases, I recommend that you always take a look at real cloud services first. And only if you cannot take advantage of a managed service, then you evaluate bring your own cloud. In most cases, this is therefore if you have very specific security or compliance requirements. In the cloud, we need to separate between platform as a service and software as a service. Or in other words, the one is partially managed and the other one is fully managed or serverless. This is also a tricky space, and some vendors also say when they have like a self-managed solution like here at the top and have some operators and automation tools, that they're also a platform as a service. You can define it like that. I don't. So for me, some services that just run on Kubernetes with some operators, they are still self-managed in my opinion. And that's not PaaS in this example and landscape here. So if we take a look now at these kind of cloud PaaS vendors or partially managed Kafka services and data streaming services, we see a lot of new entrants into this market. And this is another proof that really Kafka became the de facto standard for data streaming across all the different vendors and cloud providers. Google, in the meantime, introduced its own service. Oracle is starting with that. Then a few other ones exist for a long time, like Instacluster or Microsoft Azure HD Insight, which, by the way, is mainly for more like analytics based on Hadoop and so on. And then we also have a few services which are not based on Kafka or Flink, especially Amazon Kinesis, which is pretty good for some use cases. It's good enough. But here you need to be very careful regarding the scale and then the cost that's applied to that. The more you scale, the more expensive Kinesis gets quickly. And then what I would say is the leaders here in the past is, as you see, Ivan, IBM with Red Hat, and Amazon MSK. Especially Amazon MSK gets better and better. They're adding a few connectors, mainly actually only to the Amazon interfaces, not to other third parties. And therefore, it's getting more and more complete, but also keep in mind that these are all still only partially managed. So you have the control and of the over the operations. You have the final responsibility for these services. There is no 24/7 SLAs for that. And a service like Amazon MSK, if you take a look at the terms and conditions, and you should do that, many people unfortunately don't, it even excludes Kafka support from its offering. So you get support for the EC2 instances, for the ABS volumes, but not for the Kafka issues. And that doesn't make much sense, right? But this is why platform as a service or partially managed Kafka, you need to understand the risk and efforts behind that. And therefore, my recommendation is that you always take a look at fully managed services, or sometimes you call it serverless or software as a service, and only choose other ones like PaaS or bring your own cloud if you really need that, for example, for security or compliance reasons. And that's why most of the innovation actually happens in the SaaS space. And here you see a few of the smaller vendors and startups like Decodable is focusing only on a Flink managed service. And then obviously also there's a service around Pulsar. I don't see that much in the market, but it's there. You could try it. Verica is about Flink, Red Panda Cloud. And then what I would say is more the more adopted and complete offerings, starting with Amazon MSK serverless. This, by the way, that's very important. This is not the same product as MSK, and there's much less innovation happening here. And I don't see this used a lot for different trade-offs in the market. So most people I see using Amazon, they're using Amazon MSK, the partially managed one, which is a more complete offering, but with its trade-offs. Google Dataflow is another one of these examples, like Kinesis, which is not based on Kafka or Flink. Good enough for some use cases, but obviously also therefore comes with its trade-offs and limitations because it's not built on top of the Kafka protocol and not using Flink. And then the truly serverless offerings we see in the market more and more is Alibaba Cloud, especially if you're in mainland China or in Asia. Then Event Hubs from the beginning was a serverless offering that's very different from MSK. On the other side, it's not using Kafka, the open source framework under the hood, but only the Kafka protocol and has a proprietary implementation under the hood. But this is also becoming more and more the standard, actually. So Kafka democratizes. It's in the end getting some kind of commodity. And then vendors innovate with the implementation under the hood. The same is true for what I would say is the clear leader here with Confluent Cloud, where it's also a re-architected Kafka for the cloud. At Confluent, it's called the Quora engine, which is elastic, which is consumption-based and scalable for multi-tenant usage. And again, now for the big picture, it's really important that you on the one side understand the different deployment models and the trade-offs. I recommend always start with the bottom, fully managed and serverless, and only if you cannot do that, then you choose one of the others. And on the other side, really keep in mind regarding the from left to right, adoption and completeness, both are super important so that you get the right product for your need. Regarding feature completeness, regarding 24/7 support, regarding expertise and consulting. So it's not just about the product, but really about how to use the product in your use cases. So this was the big picture about the data streaming landscape, how I see it in the market for 2025. There's a lot of logos and vendors not on here, partly because they don't have adoption yet, or others which are simply not complete data streaming platforms, but more complementary, like UIs or security gateways. And these are very valid products too. But they are not a fit for this landscape because here we are really talking about the infrastructure, about building the data pipelines and processing. And these other logos then are add-ons to that for monitoring, for security, and so on. So I hope this was a good overview, and with that you can get started with your own evaluation, finding the right data streaming product for yourself. If you have any feedback or questions, and I can imagine, especially in this topic about the landscape, you have some comments. Why is this or that vendor missing? And I agree or disagree on this or that. And that's fine. Please share me your insights, and I will also update this landscape. I will add new vendors, and I'm happy to discuss all of this. Keep in mind, this is all my point of view. And it's totally okay to have a different opinion on that and use it in different ways. Feel free to subscribe to my channel or follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter to stay in touch. Thanks a lot for watching. This is Kai Werner.